Mel said, "Don't cross the line, she looks small but she have been alive for 200 years, don't treat like kid." Except witchcraft, there are magic equipment that Senya use, the magic staff that Senya use, Eugene surprise and say, Acacia name of the staff he recognize. Acacia is the world most powerful magic staff, made from root of the 1,000-year-old tree, a fairy tree that only grow in the Great Samar forest, the homeland of elves. The elves believe the three hold their ancestors' spirits and holding up the world. Basically Mel trying to say elves cut one of the tree roots to make magic staff as a gift for Madame Senya. Eugene knows that, Senya wasn't an elf or a half-elf, but Senya had always had a good relationship with them. Senya doesn't know who her parents were. When she was just born, she was abandoned in the Great Samar forest, the vast forest in the southern corner of their continent. Luckily, an elf nearby heard Sienna's cries and brought her home. Sienna was then taken to the elves' territory. The elves in the forest at first were not happy with Sienna's presence, but after seeing her extraordinary talent in using magic they accepted her, and started teaching elves magic. Mel explains that, there hasn't been one made from the roots of the world tree, plus the red jewel at the end of the staff a dragon heart. Mel proudly announced that, there were only two magic staff that use the heart of a dragon. The first was Sienna Acacia and the other was Bloody Mary. Eugene's face immediately turned gloomy, at the mention of the second name. One of the three black magicians, contracted with the demon king of incarceration. The staff's current owner is Count Edmund Coderith of Helmet. 300 years ago, the Bloody Mary's owner was a lich named Belial. He was the subordinate of the demon king of incarceration, he the demon, who killed him. Eugene thinking, 300 years ago, the demons are all strong enough to be compared to others' demon, among them three most powerful demons. They are called the dagger, shield, and staff of incarceration. When Hamel defeated the shield of incarceration, he received a serious injury, but when he fight the staff of incarceration, he got a big hole in his chest. Eugene asks if he can hold the staff. Mel allowed it, but Eugene wouldn't be able to use the wand because staff only acknowledge Sienna as her master. Many mages tried to control staff after Sienna's disappearance, but staff rejected everyone. Eugene became increasingly curious about it. He slowly hold Acacia and pouring his mana as a form of introduction and synchronization, but staff still refuses. Eugene thought he saw Sienna's illusion that day, so he wished he could use Acacia. Finally Eugene let go of the stick after not responding for a while. Mel asks if Eugene likes Sienna. This young man said no, but Mel said no, uncertain that this young man's eyes always lit up whenever he talked about Sienna. Mel even saw that Eugene was very enthusiastic when he saw Sienna's relics. Eugene gives an excuse by saying that he only likes old stories. Like that, Mel was pleased to hear that answer. She suggested that Eugene would like one of the books in the library too. This little girl immediately stepped excitedly into one of the bookshelves. She took one book and handed it to Eugene. The book always makes Eugene annoyed and nauseous every time he sees it. A book about the travel stories of Vermouth and his companions. Sienna never told the true story, but the book is the first published and tells the story of their journey. This book is very popular. With a curt face Eugene said that it was a damn book. When Mel asks why, Eugene immediately replied with a dark face full of anger that he did not like the description of Hamel in the book, because Eugene deeply its admirers and wants to follow Hamel's footsteps, but in that book Hamel is described as very stupid. Seeing Eugene's anger, Mel quickly explained that the book was the first edition, so it would be very different from the revised version, reportedly. The book was printed in Aro 300 years ago, but no one knows who the first author was. Suspecting that the first edition was different, Eugene borrowed the book from Mel. He opened one of the pages and found the part where he challenged Vermouth in their first meeting, but he couldn't even hit. He cried after his face sank into the ground. Of course, Eugene was very upset reading that part. He was sure that the book was written by Anis the Cunning One. Mel says, if Eugene likes Hamel, then he is just like Hamel. Now she invites Eugene to move to another place. They walked down the hall until they finally came to an illustration of people, who look like the four of them. In the past. Eugene froze. At the sight, Mel explains that, this thing was created by Sienna and taken from her memories. It wasn't a painting or anything, but Sienna's view of her friends. Mel pointed out every person in every one of those people's names, until finally arrived at Hamel, the figure who did not leave any portraits during his lifetime, so Sienna's room was the only one with records of her. Eugene comments, he is handsome, without mentioning a specific name, so Mel thought that the so-called handsome figure was Vermouth, but when Eugene explained that he was talking about Hamel, Mel was shocked with a terrible face. She asks if Eugene has gone mad. Eugene awkwardly explains that his ancestor was handsome, but Hamel has the unique charm of a wild animal. Instantly Mel was speechless, hearing Eugene's words making the young man even more embarrassed to turn his face away. Finally they both ended up reading books on the table. Eugene asks if Sienna's all magic should be from the 12th to the 14th floor, so Eugene asks, what's on the top floor? Mel explained that, on the 13th floor was Sienna's research. When she created Acryon, Mel had said that at Eugene's level, he wouldn't be able to understand the research. Meanwhile, the 14th floor contained magic books and research results for the rest of Sienna's life. Mel said that the books were still difficult for Eugene to understand, but this time there are notes that can help you interpret the books. Eugene suspects that the quality of the books is still below witchcraft. Mel confirmed it. She told Eugene to look directly at the witchcraft instead of explaining. Finally they came back to the magic circle or witchcraft magic book. Mel explained that witchcraft, the most efficient method of moving mana using circles, the addition of the power gained when using that method, the inefficient simplification of spells, incantations without chanting, and magic materials into the subconscious for Eugene to use directly, the use of circles as the main key. Most of them are already using circles, but the method that witchcraft described was more complicated than the usual method. This method had the highest explosive power with only a small amount of mana. Even though this has been explained at length, in the end Eugene doesn't understand one bit hearing this. Mel instead said, it was clear Eugene would not understand easily, because this is the description of witchcraft, which has been named the greatest magic book in history. Then Eugene asks, now, how he read the book. Mel asked Eugene to close his eyes and stretched out his hand. Then put Eugene's mana into witchcraft. After that, he will be able to read it. Eugene did Mel's orders hesitantly in his heart. This young man was enduring if he really should only enter his mana, or did he need to move his mana the same as during a fight. But when Eugene opened his eyes, this young man had entered a strange, dark dimension. Eugene realizes it feels like a dream, but with a different sensation. Unlike lucid dreaming, this young man couldn't control his body freely. He also didn't have any visual disturbances, like when the dream demon launched its attack. It felt like this young man was being sucked in by a sense of helplessness. Then he was hit by a sea of glistening mana. Then Eugene seemed to be sinking, but he was actually floating above a large circle. Within the large circle appeared several small circles. Eugene was completely shocked when he saw this, but suddenly, he regained consciousness and was knocked unconscious on the floor. As soon as he came to his senses, he immediately looked at Mel with a serious face and asked if he had done something embarrassing. Mel replied that suddenly fainting was a bit embarrassing. This little girl smiled and asked Eugene not to worry because many mages pee their pants after experiencing witchcraft, but Eugene only passed out for 2 hours. The Tower Master Milkith and the Master Blue Tower peed their pants when they felt the sensation of witchcraft. So now Eugene knows Milkith. She's warned him to wear change pants based on his own experience. Mel's turn to ask, what does Eugene feel about the witchcraft sensation? The man found it complicated and difficult. He still couldn't describe what he saw just now. Even though he could guess the outline, he couldn't turn it into knowledge and study it. The way circles work is interesting, because many small circles are formed in one big circle. He thought that there were only 9 circles. Mal explained that when Senya created the circles, She only had 9 circles, but Xenia continued to deepen her magic, after that successfully breaking through the boundaries that she had imagined herself, and find the eternal whole, the absolute pinnacle of the circle. The method can only be reached by Xenia. Since the creation of witchcraft, many magicians have devoted their lives to imitating the eternal whole, but no one managed to break through the 9 circles, because one needed to use up all of one's mana without losing any control, all of it in one circle, and that circulation by forming a circle. That method would be very easy. For example, a fireball that is cast using an eternal whole will be much stronger than an ordinary fireball with circle 9. This method also doesn't require complicated calculations or chance, and which one is used as not big. Then Mel asks, if Eugene understands now that Xenia is the strongest person in the world because she managed to create an eternal whole. Mel couldn't see it, but this girl sure Xenia could kill a demon king on her own. Eugene seemed to think hard now. He knew Xenia wasted no time when she got back from Helmet. You could say she grew much stronger than he remembered by now. Eugene was sure that Xenia Small Odd and even Vermouth themselves must have grown stronger. Then why don't they challenge the Demon King one more time? Thinking about this made Eugene even more irritated. Finally, Eugene came down from the 12th floor, and in front of him, Sir Ro and Madame Milkith were waiting. Sir Ro immediately asked how Eugene felt after seeing Legendary Magic Book for the first time. Eugene is still not convinced. It would take him several more years to understand even one book. Milkith is confirmed it, because the books in that place are a collection of borrowed magical knowledge, spending several centuries. So even though Eugene is a genius, there is a limit to how far he can understand without the help of a teacher. In the end, Milkith wanted to borrow Wined, so she would teach Eugene the 10 magic books that place. Eugene asks that this offering needn't be limited to magic books only. Eugene asked for other items to offer, like magic items. Milkith saw that Eugene was quite good at negotiating, so Milkith tried to offer many magical items to Eugene because this young man didn't have one yet. The staff can make Eugene control mana and then simplify his technique. Eugene think about this seriously. Then Sir Ro tell him that he also have plenty of great staff, he can lend them any time. Milkith was clearly annoyed that the Red Tower Master joined their conversation. Sir Ro thought Milkith was greedy because she still wanted to enter into a contract with another spiritual king, even though she had entered into a contract with 2 spiritual kings. Milkith was getting annoyed hearing that. She glared at Sir Ro, while cursing, and said that Sir Ro was just worried about causing trouble after contracting with the elemental king of wind. Milkith gets even more intense than says that Sir Ro is going too far, because even though they have been friends for decades, Sir Ro still can't believe her, even though Milkith doesn't want to get involved in odds politics or something annoying like that. Sir Ro be encountered by saying that Milkith could say it like that now, but who knows what Milkith will do once he feels strong. Finally, Milkith is promised not to change, just because she got more power, even if she could tie a contract with the elemental king. Later Sir Ro finally let Milkith go because she swore by her own name. So Sir Ro believed her. Eugene suddenly says he's thought he doesn't really want the item. Milkith is emphasized that she had no intention of giving up to Eugene. She only intended to lend it. Before that, Eugene said that he would only lend Wined for a few days, so if Milkith just wanted to lend him an artifact for a few days as payment, it would be better if Eugene didn't agree to this deal. Milkith was certainly furious to hear this. She finds Eugene very annoying, but finally Milkith is decided to make a 1-year deal for 1 day. Eugene knows that means 7 years for a week. He asked if Milkith wanted to make a contract with the elemental wind king that badly. Milkith enthusiastically confirmed it. This woman explained that to her and other spiritualists, the elemental king of wind spirit was like a dream because only Vermouth the Great could make a contract with him. Sir Ro came back and said that the White Tower Master had a very great and valuable artifact. Instantly Milkith is panicked and prevented Sir Ro from speaking, but Eugene already knows and becomes curious, so Sir Ro continued that it was something called the Cape of Darkness. Sir Ro asked why Melkith was angry. It had not been used for 10 years, Melkith replied angrily that she loved it too much to wear it because she remembered that many obstacles she had to go through to get it. Sir Ro thought that it was better to lend it to someone more in need in order to get what Melkith wanted, than keep it as decoration, because Melkith is definitely wouldn't use it at all. Melkith fell silent at the suggestion. Eugene asks, "What is the Cape of Darkness?" reluctantly. Melkith answered, "It was outerwear for winter, it was soft and warm." That was all Melkith wanted to say. However, Sir Ro explained that it was a cloak, containing high-level space-time magic. It has a similar function to the Shield of Gadon from Lionheart's treasury. It can continue on attack aimed at the cloak by bouncing it in another direction. Sir Ro added that the outside of the road was set using advanced defense magic, so just using it could protect one from fifth circle magic attacks. Melkith argued that it also depended on how much mana the wearer had. Sir Ro went back to reviewing the road saying, there was subspace magic in the cape, so if you stick with the various weapons that Eugene used to do, then he'll love it, because you can store a lot of weapons in it and use it when needed. Melkith cursed even more angrily. Hear all the words of Sir Ro, who did not miss a single gap. Eugene says that things sounds great, so he wanted to choose the Cape of Darkness instead of staff or other items, but he couldn't take the thing now, because he needed to ask the family leader first. Melkith upset by saying that she has not agreed. Eugene instead diverts the conversation by saying, he's exhausted from using his brain for too long, while in the library above, so he invites Sir Ro to eat somewhere. Sir Ro responded right away saying, he knew a great place up in the sky area, the food was great and the views were great. The student and teacher compactly ignored Melkith. Finally Melkith was frustrated and agreed to Eugene's request. With a scary face holding back anger, Melkith said he would lend his favorite robe to Eugene, but Eugene said that there was no need for the White Master Tower to rush. He had to ask the family head for permission first. Instantly Melkith screamed very loudly. The sound was so terrible that Eugene was shocked and thought it was a crow. Sir Gilliard had nothing against someone borrowing Wined. The head of the family only said that the supervisor from Lionheart needed to be present to witness Melkith. He's borrowing Wined. So currently the three of them are standing in front of the gate of the Red Tower, waiting for the supervisor from the Lionheart family. Eugene asked if the robe Melkith was wearing was the Cape of Darkness. Melkith confirmed that and immediately boasted of his robes, but Eugene commented that it would be cooler if worn by him. Obviously, Melkith was annoying to hear this boy's commentee, but Eugene casually asked him not to get angry. Instead, Melkith should be happy because they had come to an agreement and were allowed to borrow Wined. Melkith asks, who is their supervisor? Eugene replied that it was the younger brother of the patriarch who was also the guardian of Lionheart. This was the first time their family had lent Lionheart treasure, also it's business with Ida, so it's a bit of a hassle for their family. Melkith is remember what the guardian's name is. He guessed it was the Lionheart family's hunting dog, guardian of family rules, namely Lionheart Black Lion. They have many names, but Melkith said their role was not much different from that of a hound. They obey the laws of the Lionheart more than anyone else. Last year Kyan joined the Black Lion Knight. It's not that great, for a few are talented enough and can prove your loyalty to the family. Anyone bearing the name Lionheart can apply to the Lion Knight Order, but White Lion Knight Order of the main family only serves the main family, but the Black Lion Knight Order obeys all Lionheart, and behind the Knight Orders is the Senate, those who regardless of branch origin had inscribed their names in the history of Lionheart. Even Patriarch was not on the same level as the heads of the Senate. Eugene thought that he had never seen the Black Lion Knight Order in the 4 years he spent in the main house. This youth smiled at the thought of how strong the most loyal and superior group of Lionhearts were. Then the Senate behind them. Not long after, a carriage appeared flying above them. Inside were two women of different ages, who both had white hair. Melkith commented that the arrival of Lionheart's man in the golden carriage was too extravagant. Even Melkith will be amazed because she has always respected Vermouth. Melkith is explained that she did respect Vermouth, but didn't like the Lionheart family. She didn't like the main family to restrain the reserve family. She also didn't like the cunning Senate and their Black Lion Knights. Sero reminded Milkith not to destroy her love if she still wanted to borrow Wined. Sero advised Melkith to avoid conflict with them. Melkith scowled at hearing that and didn't want to curry favor with the Lionheart family, as she thought it was a fair exchange. Milkith forgot to sob again, when she remembered having to exchange his beloved Cape of Darkness with Hunyad. Eugene asked not to cry because he could fall into the cloak while Eugene wanted to wear the robe immediately. Finally the golden carriage door opened in the first to step down with Seal Lionheart. Instantly Eugene was shocked and asked the girl why she was here. Seal replied that her mother's birthday was coming soon, so she is here for buy gift and wondering how are you doing. Seal suddenly gloomy. Behind Seal appear a handsome young man, who immediately greeted Eugene a friendly manner. He is Kyan. Behind Kyan was an old man with short hair, who patted Kyan's shoulder while trying not to overdo it. Remembering that he had recently visited Eugene, this old man said they didn't have much time, so they would get straight to the point. Eugene wondered who the old man is because his ability is quite impressive. Eugene looked at the large man's posture and muscle mass and knew that he was a spear user, not a sword, while the figure of a small man who had just stepped out of a carriage was a magician. It made sense for a magician to be present here because it's about winning then Iode stuff then. Behind them all descended again a woman who showed her haughty face. Eugene analyzed that this woman was a hand-to-hand combat and given a well-trained hand posture. Looking at her clothes, Eugene was sure that this woman held the highest rank. This woman came forward and immediately greeted Sero. She just found out that Sero is now the master of the Red Tower. Even Sero's face looked very contemptuous at this woman. Sero said gently that he would be the master of the Red Tower one day. This woman seemed to hesitate to remember whether Sero had actually said that, for so much time had passed between them. Then this woman turned. Eugene the young man immediately bowed as a sign of respect for this Black Lion leader. This woman introduced herself as Carmen Lionheart. She is Eugene's grand aunt, though she doesn't want to be called that. Eugene was clearly stunned to hear that, because that means this Carmen is patriarch aunt, and to seeing Sero and Melkith, Eugene wasn't surprised by their youthful appearance, but someone of Carmen's caliber had come to Aro to sort things out. He was clearly a little taken aback. Sero then said it was cold, then let's discuss inside. Carmen Lionheart, the younger sister of the previous head of the family, she did not marry and remained in the main family home. Then enter the Black Lion Knight, she is captain of the Third Order. Now, while the big man who already looks old as named Nathan Lionheart, the vice captain of the Third Legion, comes from a family of reserves. Then the wizard named Palago Lionheart, who also comes from a spare family, but he has rare magic. He was assigned to take care of Milkith today. Palago explains that Stormblade belongs to the Lionheart main family and also the artifact Cape of Darkness belonging to the White Tower Master. The deal was that every day he borrowed Wined, Eugene had the right to borrow the Cape of Darkness for 1 year. Palago asked Melkith this and the White Tower Master confirmed. Palago words. Then Palago took out the contact. He have made Melkith was shocked to see that she would have to pay a predetermined fee when it was destroyed. Melkith asks what to do if it breaks. Wined, Carmen, who is sitting at the window, answered Melkith would have to pay with her life. Carmen explains that Stormblade, when it is a family treasure, that is priceless with money. If Melkith wanted to borrow, then she had to be prepared to defend her life. Melkith is replied by saying that her life was also not worth money. Carmen countered saying that it was according to Arod, but they as the Lionheart family. Palago intervened in their conversation by saying there was no need to risk life. He respected Melkith as a wizard. Palago was sure that Melkith would not make rookie mistakes like crushing Wined when he wanted to contract with the elemental king of wind. But Palago gave a mysterious smile when he asked Melkith to pray that something like that would not happen, but when if were destroyed, then they would think of a solution right then and there. Melkith asked the Carmen if they would hold the rights over control like that. Carmen responded by saying that if Melkith didn't like it, then she wouldn't need to borrow Wined. Carmen explained that her party was under no obligation to lend her the sword. If there was no request, west from the head of the family, then she wouldn't be willing to visit that place. Melkith denied that statement by saying that Carmen sounded as if she had come to Arot just for them, but for other matters as well. Carmen confirmed what Melkith said. She reached for a large pocket watch from her pocket to check the time. She said it come for more important matters than trivial matters like this. She said, she had an appointment to meet Belzac in an hour. She needed to discuss Ayada's matter, and question the dark wizard in Arod prison. This time it was Sero, who answered Carmen the last time they spoke to Patriarch. They had agreed to follow Arod laws, regarding the dark magician problem, whereas what Carmen was talking about just now went against Patriarch wishes. Carmen said the head of the family told him to follow the laws of Arod. The Senate had another opinion. This incident has tarnished Lionheart's name, so that damn black magician had to pay for it. Eugene instead focuses on the pocket watch that Carmen brought. He thought the pocket watch was too complicated and too heavy for no one else to be carrying it. Now Melkith instead asked boldly why Carmen was wearing a watch if she was carrying a pocket watch, and why does Carmen keep sticking that cigar, even though she doesn't light it? This woman is indeed too brave. Instead, responding to Melkith's words, Carmen said that she had already obtained permission from the king and parliament of Arot. So it was better in his opinion to question the man than prolong the trouble for both parties. Melkith becomes irritated because Carmen dodges his question. Meanwhile, Eugene thought that they must be paying Parliament such bombastic money that they couldn't refuse and were permitted to interrogate the dark magician directly. It was the Lionheart way of directly questioning and punishing criminals. Then Carmen asks what Melkith will do to Wined, because the wizard didn't have much time. Melkith immediately looked serious thinking about Carmen's question. She needed at least 3 hours to use Wined and had a contract with the elemental king of wind. That means at most 2 more months, he can take his rope. Eventually Melkith decided to sign the contract and said she would finally. The exchange took place. Eugene immediately put on Melkith's robe. Meanwhile, the master of the White Tower was immediately happy to be holding Wined. Carmen suddenly came over to Eugene, who was researching his new robes. The woman who had white hair and a sharp gaze had the robe design was good. She likes the fur on her neck, reminded him of one of the lion feathers in the Lionheart family crest, but she commented that the color was a weakness. According to her, it would be better if the color was white like the white flame method or a gray color. She thought that color would look better if worn by a black lion knight. Eugene was stunned to hear Carmen's string of words. Seeing that Eugene didn't understand Carmen's meaning, Seal immediately approached in a whisper to Eugene to give the robe to Carmen, because that means Carmen wants to try it. Eugene counters by saying Carmen did not stay clearly about it. Seal tried to give them the sense that not everything has to be said in person. Seeing that the cloak on Carmen's shoulders was taken off, Eugene finally handed over his new robe with a heavy heart. Carmen immediately put it on and used it to pose in various styles. After trying it, the woman commented that the robe was not bad and it would be better if there was a lion decoration on her chest, plus the huge Lionheart family symbol behind it. Melkith replied loudly that it would look like as gifting them as cloak. She asked them not to misunderstand because from the start, she only intended to lend, so she asked everyone not to damage her robes. Once again Carmen ignored Melkith and asked everyone to leave. Meanwhile Kyan said Seal to wait with Eugene, so Seal will be happy to just wait while waiting for the adults to take care of the Ayada problem. Eugene and Seal went to the market to buy gifts. On the way, Eugene reminds Seal to tell Cyan to get rid of the magazine about the bunny costume hidden under the bed. It was Nina who reported this to Eugene. He was worried that the maid uniform would have bunny ears added in the future. Seal was disgusted to hear that. She promised to tell his mother later. Eugene's opinion, telling Madame Anisilla right away would be a bit much, so he suggested telling Cyan that those bunny ears were not the right way to live. Seal suddenly asked with an innocent face, what kind of ear does Eugene like? Of course Eugene himself was surprised to hear that this young man did not want the topic to change to that, but Seal insisted on knowing because earlier Eugene said bunny ears weren't the answer, so, Seal guessed Eugene must have liked other kinds of ears. Eugene changed the subject by asking, why he should we going to find a present for Madame Anasilio because she doesn't even know what Madame likes. Seal said, she knows, so she just had to follow her. Eugene said, he didn't need to accompany Seal, if only to go around. Hearing that, Seal was immediately annoyed and turned his head angrily. She was annoyed because of Eugene's cold attitude. She asked in a high tone, if Eugene would let her walk around alone in an unfamiliar. Eugene countered by saying that this girl was no longer an innocent child, so she must be able to find her way. Seal replied that, even though Eugene said that he still followed Seal, Eugene answered that he had to participate or he would be immediately hated if he made a mistake against Seal's. Well, Seal changed the topic by asking, what did Eugene do on his past birthday? The young man replied, he didn't do anything and just read books in the Red Tower. He didn't get any presents either. Suro and Hera wanted to give him a present, but Eugene begged them not to give him a gift. He guessed that Seal must want something from Lady Carmen. Seal confirmed it. She was annoyed that Eugene was always responsive to useless things. Seal persuaded Carmen to become his mentor. After all, her brother would soon become the head of the family and she was worried that her mother would soon marry her to a foreign man, so because she didn't want to, she also couldn't continue hiding in the main family's mansion and act like a lady. Eugene asks, if Seal wants to join the Black Lion Knight. Seal replied, now she can't join, but she wants to be taught by Lady Carmen. Eugene comments that it's good, the fact that Seal wants to be independent instead of being quiet and just spending the family's money. Then Eugene asked how Cyan was. Seal answered that his brother often talked about Eugene. Seal's brother asked his sister to find out how many stars Eugene's now. Eugene replied that it was still 3 stars so that the twins would not feel inferior. Cyan is also still in the same 2 stars as before Eugene left. Then Eugene also asked if Seal had heard about the Ayada. Seal replied that Lady Theanese was looking magician to teach Ayada. Home Sealed thought it was funny because Lady Theanese still wanted her child to learn magic. That's what she did. After all, his son can no longer be the head of the family. Seal wonders why Lady Theanese is still holding her son in check. Suddenly Seal turned cheerful and took Eugene's arm. She took her adoptive brother out for lunch and looked for a good restaurant in the vicinity. Even though Eugene said the fruit there wasn't as good as at home, Seal still wanted to have lunch with Eugene. This girl said that eating doesn't have to focus on taste, but the atmosphere when eating is just as important. Inside Arrowed prison, Nathan had just beaten the Dark Wizard and was now cleaning up his blood. He reports to Carmen that is now dead. Carmen replied the witch have kept her mouth shut even after being tortured. This woman thought it was funny, because a dark magician of such a low rank could contact a Lionheart of the main bloodline. Carmen assumed the man had no fear, or it could be madness. Someone in front of the prison said it was because he was desperate. Gevitt has been studying magic for decades but has yet to make any achievements. If he died without making any achievements, then his soul would fall into the hands of the demons and he could not be reincarnated. So, he wanted to try whatever he could. He probably thought, even if it would trouble him, he would be able to get out of that situation after gaining the strength he got from selling Ayada. Carmen asks, if it's true that the Night Witch Queen Noirzi Bella isn't involved in all. With a friendly smile, Beltsac said, he didn't understand why Carmen would accuse him in this case because all this time, he always tried to help as much as possible in the investigation. Belzac has also given a sufficient apology and respect. Carmen said that it made more sense to blame Belzac than the useless black magician. Belzac understood what Carmen meant, but he couldn't achieve anything by doing that. Belzac instead said that if he was the culprit, then he wouldn't leave any traces. He would make sure this case couldn't be traced back to him. He also explained that there are many his enemies because the Demon King of Incarceration had given him a lot of affection. And in Helmet many hate about relationship with the Demon King, that's based on experience. Belzac added that there was no evidence that he was the culprit. Belzac was getting tired of having to say over and over He wasn't the culprit, Belzac said. He wasn't the only one who would feel uncomfortable because of this incident, but from Lionheart's side as well. Carmen said with a serious face that Belzac was free to say anything, but freedom also comes with responsibility, so she challenged Belzac to be ready to face all the consequences of she's statement about. Belzac replied, as a loyal servant of the Demon King of Incarceration, he viewed the Lionheart family with the same respect as him. That's why he apologized and is willing to cooperate in handling this case, but he was still human, so he couldn't contain his grief at the accusations from the Lionheart family. Suddenly the aura around Belzac became very gloomy. He stated his full name, then he also added that he could still understand if the other person didn't want to show respect to him, but he couldn't understand the abuse they kept throwing at him in his master, the Demon of Incarceration. Seeing this dark aura, Cayenne immediately stepped forward and was ready to draw his sword. Carmen said that she didn't want to cause trouble in other areas. Belzac finally volunteered to take care of this matter, so that both parties could be satisfied, but Carmen asked if Chief Belzac would still be in place to take care of this. Belzac fell silent. Finally Carmen said that there was a reason for the suspicions, even if there was someone who wanted to tarnish the name of the Lionheart family. That had yet to be proven, so Carmen couldn't get anything from the witnesses even after using torture magic and mental magic, as if this had been carefully planned. It was because of this that he suspected Belzac, even though Belzac responded to the accusation with a smile still in his mind. This man said if he was the culprit, he would erase all traces and evidence properly. But in front of everyone, he adamantly said that he wasn't the culprit and he has no intention of doing. So now Carmen believed Belzac's words. She also asked, "What about the incubus, who tried to tie a contract with Ida?" Belzac replied, that his condition was unsightly, but Carmen insisted on knowing because she had seen many terrible and vile things. Hearing that, Belzac immediately created a black hand from his dark magic energy. What that hand? He created a gate right above two of them. Belzac caught the head of the incubus demon from above. Then this man explained that the Demon King of Incarceration had taken the incubus soul. If they wanted abouts that could give them the head of the incubus, Carmen said, they didn't need anything like that. Hearing Carmen's answer, Belzac dropped the head and Carmen immediately kicked it until it was thrown against the wall and shattered. Even though some of the incubus blood was splashed onto Belzac's face, the man didn't look bothered at all. Carmen invites the rest of her family to come home soon, but before that she turned back to Belzac and warned him not to contact Eugene Lionheart. While wiping the blood on his face, Belzac said that the only one who can control his actions and desires is the Demon King of Incarceration, so he said emphatically that Carmen couldn't write to tell me what to do. The group of Lionheart family members get out of jail. Carmen asks what Cayenne thinks about this case, because Carmen suspects Amelia Merwin, a figure who wants to get the position of Black Tower Master. Carmen knows the King of Incarceration does not limit the will of the Dark Magician, who has a contract with them, that one also doesn't care about the problems that befall his subordinates. Out in a few years, she also concluded, they would attack the Thurath area first, because MANHUA has always been hostile to Thurath. If MANHUA attacks, there's like it or not, we must prepare to join the war. Those preparations would also definitely summon the Lionheart family. Cayenne asked if Amelia was preparing all of this for something big in the future. Then Carmen asked Cayenne what would happen if she didn't ignore Belzac's provocation earlier. Cayenne responds doubtfully that there will be a fight, then everyone will die, except for Carmen. Hearing that, Carmen said Cayenne was too modest, but Cayenne himself said he doubted he could defeat a wizard. Carmen suddenly said that she also doubted that she could beat Belzac. That's why he chose to ignore Belzac. Carmen says, Ida will be watched closely from now on. A Black Lion Knight has been sent to the Theanese family. He wasn't going to kill Ida outbreak. Ida will be watched forever and his inheritance rights will also be revoked, and she had even heard the Theanese was looking for a magic teacher for Ida, but they would stop that. If this incident was exactly what they suspected, then they would try contacting him again. Cayenne became sad, remembering his one nephew. Ida used to be very innocent and interested in magic. he did not expect that his nephew could fall into black magic at last. They were all ready to climb back into the golden carriage to return. Before leaving, Seal didn't forget to say goodbye to Eugene, but before they get on the carriage, Carmen offers Eugene to join the Black Lion Knight, because currently the position of assistant captain of the 2nd Division is vacant. Carmen could make a recommendation right now, but Eugene just bowed and thanked him for the offer, but for now he had to decline the offer. Then he wished them all a smooth journey. Carmen stared at the young man with sharp eyes before finally turning around and getting into the carriage. They fly on carriage,